strategic arms limitation talks known as SALT.
You're one of those who have sat down over a long period of time with the Russians negotiating. Could you give us a glimpse of how the Russian leadership thinks?
I would say that I see them as being very interested in controlling nuclear arms. Not because of any sort of philanthropy or anything of that sort, but because they are genuinely afraid of nuclear war. As a matter of fact, nuclear war to them is perhaps a more real threat and a more real danger than it is to us.
Why is that?
Well, one thing, because of the fact that the last time there was military action on American territory was 120 years ago, and then it was Americans against Americans with muskets and cannonballs. Whereas the Soviets, of course, were major casualties of World War II.
Soviet overtures to us are invariably described as propaganda.
Yes.
How do we receive them? Are they to be believed, or are they, most of them, propaganda? How do you see them?
Well, in my own opinion, what we have to do is to find out whether they're serious or not. If it's a bluff, we ought to call the bluff. It might very well turn out not to be a bluff. But if they make this kind of an overture, and we do nothing in response except to say that it's propaganda, it seems to me what we do is to sow division within the Western alliance.
How could arms control in the 1980s be put into practice, in your view?
Well, really, I see nothing wrong with the process that's been going on, except for the fact that it's taken an inordinately long period of time. SALT I froze the number of strategic launchers. SALT II was designed to put an actual numerical ceiling, to begin reductions, and to begin the process of qualitative restrictions as well as quantitative restrictions. I say the only difficulty is that it's taken too long. Now, it's entirely feasible, entirely realistic to say, okay, at this point, make a few cosmetic changes if you feel that you have to, so that you can call it SALT 2.5, or the Reagan Treaty, and ratify it. And then move on, because once you've got that framework in place, then the opportunities are really vast. You could have, for example, a negotiation on theater nuclear force reductions. That could go on concurrently with negotiations on a bilateral basis between the United States and the Soviet Union to have further reductions, to extend the term of the treaty. By the end of 1981, the limit was supposed to be 2,250, which would require, as I've said earlier, that the Soviets eliminate some 250 to 300. Well, by the end of 1984, why not get down to 1,800? By the end of 1985, get down to something like 1,700 and extend the term of the treaty for another 5 years.